welcome to Groove CQ. We're going to go out there. We're going to practice CQ. We are not going to try to meme it. We're going to try to be as serious as we can. We'll still have some fun out there and banter a little bit as it allows, but we're not going to be, doing some crazy deck runs and random flybys and going rogue. We're going to try to actually do a real CQ here. And the most important thing I want to get out of it for everyone is procedures and pattern. So, calm. I want everyone to be good at that. I want people to try to land on the ship safely, but that is secondary to pattern, and procedures. So being courteous in the pattern and not train wrecking it for everyone else, because if we are not squared away in the pattern, the whole thing gets train wrecked, and we'll talk about that in a bit. This is server info. Ray, this is for you, and for anyone who didn't see this yesterday, it has the SRS data on there along with the server info. Has not changed from yesterday, so if you didn't mess with anything since this, it should all still be the same, but this is it.
Roger.
And if you need to reference it afterwards, this PowerPoint itself is in the carrier manual channel of the Groove server. So if you open that up, you can get this PowerPoint and you can get this stuff. So fear not as I go away from this page. All right. Discussed it yesterday. You should have the latest DCS or SRS versions. That's them right there, because that's the latest open beta, and that's what we're going to be using. We'll have some guys starting from the ship, and we'll have some guys starting from the shore. And we'll talk about how that'll work here shortly, but there are slots for both. There'll be cold starts, and there's a few hot starts available for those that want, but it's cold start is probably going to be better for both the realism and for getting things set up the way that you want. If you are at the airfield, you are on your own. I am not controlling any of that. You guys can go do your own thing. If you want to go as a formation from the field to the ship, you guys can pick whatever tactical frequency you want to have in aux for intraflight, but that is completely over to you guys. Taking off and all that is on you. There's uncontrolled. For those spawning on the ship, up and ready is the call I want you to make. The real world call is up and ready with your gross weight. So up and ready 36K would be one example of that. But just to keep it simple, we'll make it a little artificial. You can just say up and ready once you're fully ready to go from your parking spot to the catapult. So that's the call you make. Taxi on the flight deck. I'll just give generic instructions for taxi to Cat 1, taxi to Cat 2. You'll taxi to be behind the Hornet that's behind Cat 1. I'll be explicit about that. I'll tell you to taxi after the island or forward to the island if I need to sideline you. And then last resort is I'll tell you to taxi forward of the LSO platform. Those would be our staging areas if you need to get sidelined, mostly for fuel. But if there's some other issue, yesterday we had some guys who couldn't hook up to the catapult, so I just kind of sent them elsewhere. But I'll be directive about that. and yeah, for takeoff on the runway, again, completely up to you. The formation takeoff, single takeoff, I don't really care. For the carrier, the default position is that I'm going to clear everyone for launch. Again, that's not real world, but for managing this event, I will say Cat 1, you're clear to launch. I'll use your side number and say that you're clear to launch. If I say 99 all airplanes, you can launch on your discretion, then you don't have to wait for me. You can just launch on your own. And that'll probably happen once the pattern dies down as people leave. So just be aware that that's how that's going to work on the ship. We're not going to go take our own cat shots. All right, en route to the ship, 72 X-rays, the carrier tack in, channel 15s, the ICLS. Get those squared away. We'll talk about some other setup here. I didn't fix the slide from yesterday. It should say course 118. So the BRC is 118. It is not 125. It is 118, 118, 118. Make sure that you have that set in for your course line for the TACAN. Do hail R on your way to the ship when you're coming from the field. And even if you're launching on the ship, once you're airborne, knock out hail R. We'll talk about hail R here in a bit. Pattern entry and comm. So for the pattern, if you are coming from the field, I'll tell you to hold somewhere. So I'll tell you to take Angels 2 and you'll enter holding, or take Angels 3. That's 2,000 feet. That's 3,000 feet, and so on. If you're launching from the ship, more than likely, you can just directly enter the pattern. So just stay dirty and continue upwind and then turn downwind with your interval. In the event that you want to or need to go to the stack, let me know on the radio, and then I'll tell you to do a case 1 departure off of the catapult, which we'll talk about. SRS 127.5. So that's going to be COM 1. That should be set up in the mission already. So that will be the radio for pretty much everything. That's going to be me on tower. That's going to be me on paddles. Anything else that you want to do as a formation or something in the background, that's going to be on you. I don't really care. I'm not going to listen to that. But 1275, that should be button 1, and that will be pretty much everything, just like yesterday. Light configuration. I was guilty of this because I spawned in an airplane and immediate left and forgot to turn it off, but all lights off for the ship. So that's the pinky switch on the left throttle all the way to the aft back. That's going to turn all your lights off. That's going to be the light configuration for the ship. The thing I did not mention yesterday that I should have, taxi lights off. So if your taxi light is on, you are wrong. Please check that the taxi light is off. Cool. Delta Easy. If you hear that, that means we're going to hold. If you're on the ship, just stay where you're at and don't move. If you're holding above the ship, continue to hold. If you are in the pattern at 600 feet, this is where you're going to do something a little bit different. You are going to stay in the same configuration you're in, the landing configuration, and you're just not going to descend. You're not going to land. So at the 180 position and beam the ship, you're not going to descend down to intercept the ball. You are just going to stay at 600 feet and fly over the ship and continue. And that's our holding pattern at 600 feet. So if you hear Delta Easy, 99 Delta Easy, we're basically entering a holding pattern at that point. After landing, Fighter D, we'll talk about what that is, but if you're going from the trap to the catapult, you'll execute your Fighter D checklist. It is flaps to half, trim, button hit and set to 16, rad out reset to 40 feet, and reset the displays the way that you want. Fold your wings after landing, only because, well, I mean, partially because it's realistic, but mainly because of the limited deck space out there, but we have everyone out. So fold your wings, and when you are number 1 for the catapult, approaching the catapult, you can spread them. That's going to be you on your own to do that. But until you're the one taking the cat, keep them folded. Hold down. If you reach hold down fuel, let me know. It is your responsibility, not mine. I will try to help you with that, but it is your responsibility if you're a hold down fuel to call that. That call is only made while you're weight on wheels on the aircraft carrier. That is not made airborne. And then we'll sideline you to get some gas. The divert field is the same as the spawn for the airfield players. Whatever, I don't know how to pronounce it, but whatever that is, that's gonna be your divert field. It's gonna be about 100 miles away from the ship. If you are not starting on the, if you are starting on the ship, I would get a waypoint up, and I would have that thing as your selected waypoint the entire flight, so you have your divert and steering and range ready to go. Post-flight, feel free to spectate, write down questions, anything that came up, because I probably won't be able to do a lot of questions and answers real time. And just like yesterday, debrief, I'll take feedback, the good, the bad, the ugly, and we'll make it better for next time. Contingency, if my internet goes out, basically everyone does Delta Easy at that point until I come back in. If I go Nordo, please, people ping me in Discord. I'll look out for that, and I'll try to handle it from there, but at least raise that awareness. If you're Nordo, as in no radio, no comms, fly your pattern. Hold if you're holding, but if you're in the pattern at 600 feet, flash your taxi light as you approach the groove. That way I know that you're Nordo, and then you'll take a trap. Do not launch again. We're not going to launch you deliberately without any radios. And finally, we're doing this during my kids' nap time, so if they wake up, I'm done. So that is the time that we are limited with this here. Here's the map of the ship. The ship is 100 miles offshore. Steaming 118 is the BRC, and that is going to keep it about 100 miles from the divert field. And that is realistic. That's how we actually do it in the real world. About 100 miles away, and we just steam to keep it about 100 miles for a divert during CQ. So that's kind of your essay for that. Questions so far?
Yes, but it's somewhat unrelated.
Nice.
For the
Damn it.
For the 8.0, do you want that to be set for Tomcats and the Hornets, or just the Hornets?
I don't know anything about the Tomcat. I would just reduce the Tomcat fuel by 40%. Whatever
Okay.
their full fuel is, just reduce it by 40% for them, and that's how they'll start. We'll have everyone that's. Thank you for reminding me. Everyone that's starting on the ship, you'll be single center line fuel tank with 8,000 pounds of gas when you start up. If you are coming from the airfield, you'll have 2 wing tanks, and you'll be fully loaded of gas. All right, so that will be the plan for you guys, and we will try to manage our gross weights. Anything else, Goose? Thank you for that.
Nope.
All right, cool. Moving on. The comms. So the comms here are basically everything that you guys are going to be saying, not me. So first off, if I say 99, that means I'm talking to everybody. I'm not expecting a response from anybody else, but I'm making a general broadcast like 99. We're working 30 knots, 4 knots of starboard wind. That is a general information call. 99 Delta Easy. 99 just means everybody in Navy language. Some things that you will be expected to make today are you're checking in. If you're coming from the field, we'll make an artificial, non-realistic call. You can tell me side number, marking mom 069 for 50, Angels 25, inbound. All right, that's not a real call that you really make to the tower, but we're just going to pretend today so that way I can manage it. I'll tell airplanes to take Angels whatever and report established. When you reach that altitude, report that you're established. So 301 established, Angels 3. That's it. Um, I'll call Charlie for other aircraft. That means that you can leave holding to go to the initial. And we'll talk about that shortly. But if I say Charlie and you're at Angels 2, once you're in the proper zone to descend, you can leave Angels 2 and start proceeding to the initial to enter the break. Ball call. All right. So it's going to be side number, aircraft type, ball, fuel state, and then your name. So as an example, 204 Hornet Ball 6.9 Ray. All right, so that is how that would go. Give me honest fuel states, please. And that should be it. If you do not hear a response from me, just say Hornet Ball or Tomcat Ball. If you still don't hear a response, just say Ball. And then you can take your own wave off if I'm not responding. I should always respond. Yesterday, we did have one person who was unnamed, but inside 301, who was accidentally making their comm calls on mid's voice, and I could not roger them up, but I let them land anyway. So to make sure you are going out on SRS 127.5. And then finally, something that really makes this realistic, but also makes this go smoothly and quickly is your readbacks are only your side number. I know in civil aviation, when we read back the entire instruction, this is side number only. If I say 402, take Angels 3, the only thing I should hear is 402. If I say 301, you're clear to launch, the only thing I should hear is 301. All right. So 1, everyone know your side number. Everyone know what side number you're in. 2, only respond with your side number unless I'm asking for something. So if I say 411, say state, respond with your fuel state. Don't just give me your side number. That's just common sense. But otherwise, instructions are just going to be side number only. We did a great job of that yesterday. So let's just keep that up. That's comm stuff. Any questions on comms? All right. The one thing I do want to make emphasize from yesterday, a lesson learned, I should have put in here. When someone is on the ball, you are not allowed to talk. So if you hear 302 Hornet Ball 5.7 Osiris, no one else is allowed to talk for the next 18 seconds. Unless you can visually see from holding that the airplane has trapped, we have otherwise that say that the airplane is no longer flying the ball, then you can talk. So just wait that time. But no one is allowed to talk while someone is flying the ball. 1, for distraction reasons, and 2, for radios, for paddles own the radios at that point for safety of flight calls. All right, so no talking when someone's on the ball. Sweet. Hornet setup, I don't know about for the Tomcat, but you should have these pages up. So the HUD, the checklist, and the HSI. In real life, the HSI is always on the MPCD between your legs, but I know DCS has its limitations. So we could put that on the right DDI or somewhere else, maybe left DDI if you want, whatever you're used to. So that way you can read it a little bit easier. That is artificial, but that's fine. But you do need to have your checklist page up to manage your gross weight. Also to do your landing checklist, but I know that some of you guys might blow that off. which you shouldn't, but definitely have your gross weight SA from the checklist page. Let's see here. Max trap is 34,000 pounds for the Hornet. It is 54,000 pounds for the Tomcat. For at least the Hornet, every lap around the pattern is going to cost you 500 pounds. So if you're flying from the airfield, you can conserve fuel as best as you can, max conserve mindset. And then when you commence the initial, you can dump to go above max trap. Every airplane is responsible for managing, so a flight lead is not responsible for the dumping of his wingman, for instance, and vice versa. Do not dump directly over the ship. You could dump pretty much everywhere else. But don't dump until you've commenced, because you don't know how long you're going to be holding. So if it were me and I was coming from the ship and I had coming from the airfield, I had a full tank of gas, I would conserve it. When I was told Charlie, I would turn my dumps on, and then I would dump until I hit about 35,000 pounds, and then maybe fine tune that on the downwind, maybe 34,500 just to be safe. But if you're doing it like a pro, you are showing up on the ball exactly at 34,000 pounds. Tomcats, do whatever you do. I don't care. Hail R, we'll talk about again. That's super important for the rat out. We'll talk about that shortly, but we want to manage that. The short story is, if you're above 5,000 feet, the rat out should be set to 5,000. If you're below 5,000 feet, set it to 370 feet. For your HSI, 10-mile scale, course line through the TACAN of 118. The ICLS, you could have the ILS boxed on the HSI, is recommended but not required. Just over to you on your personal preference with that. For Hail R, all right, so you launch from the field, your feet wet, you're heading to the ship, hook down. All right, anti-skid off. I know that your anti-skid is definitely on. You just took off from a runway, so turn your anti-skid off. Box ICLS. Make sure that your lights go to off, because normally they're on when you take off from a runway, your strobes at least. Your landing weight is the second L, so just make sure that you have SA to that. And then your rat out. So set rat out to the HUD. So on the Hornet, on the upfront control, below where it says IFF, TACAN, beacon, and all that stuff, you'll have a switch that says Barrow or radar, RDR. You want to set that to RDR, and that way you have your radar altimeter inside the HUD. If you are taking off from the ship, you can get your anti-skid switch off. You can do that right there as you start up. You can set ILS and TACAN box as you want on the flight deck, and then when you launch, you'll just be responsible for making sure that your hook goes down, you have your weight and your rat out set appropriately. For holding, low holding, I'm going to use Angels 2 through 5. Holding is always going to be at 250 knots. If you have a formation bigger than 2 airplanes, you can have one on each side while you're holding to make it easier. Just make sure you get into right echelon formation as you are approaching the initial itself. I may have you hold higher. High holding is Angels 20 and higher. That's just going to be a 10-mile orbit around the ship with the ship at the center of the circle. If you're doing low holding, Angels 2 through 5, then you would have the ship at the rightmost portion of the circle. All right, it's not in the middle. It's at the rightmost portion of the circle. That's point 1. And you will maintain a 5-mile diameter. So when you're at point 3, at the furthest point away, that should be no greater than 5 nautical miles. And most people aim for 5 miles. It's a left-hand turn, 250 knots. The only time that you can descend is in the blue half here. So if you're in the green, you cannot descend. Blue, good, green, bad for descending. Can't emphasize that enough. So if I tell you at point 1 over here to Charlie, well, you can't descend down to 800 feet. You have to finish this circle here, and then once you hit this portion, anywhere in this portion, you're allowed to descend. If you're at Angels 3, and I tell you to take Angels 2, well, if you're at point 2 over here, you can't do it. But once you're in this circle, half circle, then you can descend. If for whatever reason you need to change altitudes and you're going outside the circle, you need to take care of something, or if you're in high holding, let's say you're at Angels 20 and I tell you to take Angels 2, there's no changing of altitudes within 10 miles of the ship. So leave the 10-mile circle, go to your new altitude. I don't care if you split S down there, do whatever you want. And then once you're level at the new altitude, you can now pierce that 10-mile bubble. And I'll have another picture of this here later. I found some stuff. Fuel stuff. So bingo, hold down. Because of CQ, there's no tankers. A lot of people think that there's tankers during CQ. There are not. Tankers are cyclic ops only. CQ is divert ops, not tanker ops. So bingo for the Hornet, we'll use 3,000 pounds. Hold down is 4,000 pounds. So 1,000-pound difference, that means 2 extra laps around the pattern. Bingo, if you hit 300, so we'll set with hold down, 4,000 pounds. Have your bingo bug set to 4,000 pounds. If you hear that go off and you are on the flight deck, you are not allowed to launch. You will sideline and get gas. All right, so that's what hold down is, and that's how we're going to manage that. People were really good about that yesterday, so we'll make sure that we repeat that again tomorrow. If you are at the catapult and you are at 4,100 pounds, you can launch. All right, but if you anticipate that you won't get to launch in time before 4,000 pounds hits, well, call it early. You can just call yourself hold down, and we'll get you some gas. Bingo. So if you are airborne and you hear 4,000 pounds goes off, bingo, reset your bingo bug to 3,000 pounds. If you hear bingo, because you're at 3,000 pounds of gas, then you will clean up the airplane. You will point at the divert. You will clear your flight path so you don't hit anyone, and you will execute a bingo profile. We actually had Shadow do this yesterday. He hit bingo fuel, and he followed the profile. Mill power, 475 knots to intercept 0.82 Mach up to 39,000 feet. And then an idle descent on 3-degree glide slope to your divert. And you should land with 1,500 pounds if you did this properly. For the Tomcats, this is a guess, but we'll use 3,500 for the bingo and 5,000 for the hold down. So bingo hold down, 3,000, 4,000. For the Tomcat, 3.5, 5.0. If you're hold down, refill to max trap plus 1,000. So if you're in a Hornet, once you have 35,000 pounds of weight, stop refueling. And then call it on the radio. All right. So we're not going to guess this. This is a call that you actually make. So if you're on the flight deck and you're going to be hold down, 305 hold down. Cool. I'll acknowledge that. If you are bingo, please don't just go rogue and start flying all over the place to get to your divert. Please announce that you are bingo. So that way people have essay to that. And that is a real procedure as well. Cool. Questions on anything so far on the slides so far? Anybody? Nice. All right. Cool. After landing. So forget about fueling in general. Let's talk about after landing. All motion stops. The hook is going to come up. You're going to fighter D and fold your wings. All right. So get the wing fold going right away. So that way we are saving space. And we'll execute our fighter D checklist, which we'll talk about. And then it says line up in the shortest line at Cat 1 or 2. That is absent any other instructions. That's going to be your default game plan. All right. Find the shortest line, Cat 1 or 2, and just get in line there and try to snuggle up as close as you can so we're being as efficient with the space as possible. Sometimes if people are getting too many traps and the guys from the airfield are showing up and they're not getting any traps, I may just sideline you. So I may say just park forward of the island, kind of maybe in the 6-pack, realistically over to the side of the ship, to be honest, out of the way. I'll just say park forward of the island, and you're just going to sit there for a little while. There will be downtime. All right, so there will be times where you are just sitting on the flight deck and you're not moving, and it will be, it could be 15 minutes or something like that where you haven't gone. Or you'll be holding an Angels 2 or 3, and you're just like, wow, I haven't gotten any traps yet. Well, that's just the nature of the beast with flying with so many airplanes, and frankly, that's how it is in real life. I've done this as a student, and it was a half hour between cat shots. Or sorry, I would trap, wait a half hour, cat shots, wait 20 minutes, cat shot, and wait even longer for another one, and then I wouldn't even get all my cat shots done, just because there's a limit to the amount of airplanes that are allowed in the pattern, and because we have to get other people done besides yourself. So there may be some downtime. We saw a little bit of it yesterday, but I try to minimize it, but I think it worked out pretty well. If you need to refuel, I'm going to send you aft. Okay, so aft of the island, that's going to be your refueling place. So if I tell you to taxi aft, that's what I mean, aft of the island. If that gets full, I'll send you to the Finger, which is just forward of the LSO platform. And the 6-pack is kind of our last resort for that because it gets kind of crowded. Be mindful of the foul lines, which is my way of saying just stay out of the way of the landing area. So that way we don't foul the landing area. After you have refueled, come up with your side number and say up and ready, just like when we started up in the very beginning. All right. When you're launching, this is fighter D. All right. So you've just landed. You're going to the catapult. Flaps need to go to half. Accomplish the checklist page from bottom to top. We discussed why we do it that way at the ship yesterday. Hit the takeoff trim button on the left side of the Hornet, and then hold the takeoff, and then select 16 degrees nose up on the stabs. That is on the FCS page. So please make sure we're doing that. Tomcat, I don't know what the hell they do for trim, but if you're a Tomcat guy, you're responsible for knowing that. You'll set the rad out to 40 feet for the cat shot, and then set up your displays the way that you need them. At least having the HUD, HSI, and your fuel state, your gross weight at a minimum. After you launch, you'll do your hail R, but don't forget to also get your flaps to full. So, true confession, real life, rag CQ, I forgot to set my flaps to full after launch, and I did one flaps half landing when I wasn't supposed to, and it was just oh my god, I hope I don't get caught moment. And I overshot like crazy. It just ruined my pattern totally, but whatever. Rather be lucky than good. Don't make my mistake. So flaps full after you land in the Hornet, after you launch in the Hornet. Get your rad out to 370 and just go through Hail R again, especially the H. I know a guy whose call sign is Ailer. Literally AILR is his call sign because he keeps on forgetting to put his hook down from Hail R. So his call sign is Ailer. He went to Top Gun. All right, so just make sure we get all that done. All right, we're getting into the meat of the matter here. Does anyone have any questions so far on anything? Cool. Can anyone still hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay,
No.
cool. I want to make sure that I wasn't just talking to myself for the past 20 minutes. All right, sweet.
Is this when I wake up? Is this?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
hey, how about that? Hi. All right, so cool. To the pattern. All right. Most important part of this whole thing is our procedures and our pattern. I don't care if you can't fly the ball well, if you can't land on the ship, if you're boltering and all that stuff. But if you're not flying a discipline pattern, you're going to train wreck the whole thing, and it's going to ruin it for everyone, least of all me. So please pay attention to this part and put your maximum effort into this, if nothing else. All right, so if you've commenced from holding, you're going to aim for the initial, which is 3 miles behind the ship, 800 feet, 350 knots. All right, that's the baseline. So we'll make sure that we're squared away there. 800 feet, 350 knots, 3 miles behind the ship. Then you're going to break. If you are single ship or if you are leading a formation, break at least 1 mile past the ship. At least 1 mile past the ship. If you're doing a shit hot break, that's a different story. But speaking generally, at least 1 mile past the ship. Too many people are breaking at random distances, like a half a mile, and it just does not give you enough straightaway on the downwind to get squared away. And we call that no man's land. So we don't want to do that. At least 1 mile. Or break with your interval. So if there's another airplane on downwind, then you have to wait anyway. And we'll talk about that in a second. If you are a wingman, you will break 17 seconds after the preceding airplane. So after lead breaks, 2, you're going 17 seconds after that. 3, you're going 17 seconds after that. And then you have to stay within 4 miles. So if you are a flight of 2, this is really not that big of a deal. If you're a flight of 3, you really don't want to break further than a mile because then the last guy is going to be pushing this 4 mile limit. Cool. Once you are on downwind, immediately below 250, gear down, flaps full. Okay. We don't want to wait till we're 230 knots. We don't want to dilly dally. We want to get as slowed down as fast as we can and as squared away as possible as early as possible, because then we're going to have a snowball effect of trying to correct things later on. So as soon as you can, below 250. I don't know what the limits are on the Hornet. The Tomcat. So Tomcat guys, do that properly as well. And then super important, fight for your beam distance. So in the Hornet in DCS, not real life, in DCS, 1.2 to 1.3 miles of beam. That's going to be the goal. 1.2 to 1.3 miles of beam. You can play out this turn. There's no how many G's do I pull? What's my angle of bank? That's not how this works. You're going to do some of that pilot shit, and you're going to play out the turn so you end up 1.2 to 1.3 miles of beam. If you end up at 1.4 or 1.5, aggressively correct to get back to that 1.2 to 1.3. All right. We want to end up at a beam position at the 180 to be on speed, on our beam distance, fully configured at 600 feet. We want every single one of those parameters met. And that means you have to get squared away early. This is a really hard part for a lot of people. If you end up a mile of beam because you pulled too hard, then get there, get to the proper beam distance. Uh, Tomcat guys, I don't know what kind of gouge you use with the TACAN. You do a bunch of trigonometry because you got an old piece of shit airplane. But in the Hornet, on the bottom right of your HSI, you have your distance to course line. Use that as your tool to know how far you are. So if you have a 118 course line through your TACAN, then you will have a distance to course line in the bottom right that you should use. Now, when do we turn to approach the ship? When you see the white paint of the flight deck, of the stern of the flight deck, it's called the round down. When you see that white paint, that's when you start your turn. Common error, we see guys starting this way too late, and we'll talk about that here in a second, but we cannot have that happen. It's going to mess up for everybody else. So when you see the white paint of the round down, you start your left-hand turn. This is an instrument turn. I know it's a VFR pattern. This is very counterintuitive. It's an instrument turn. Very disciplined instrument scan. 27 to 30 degrees angle of bank. That's going to be your initial target. All right, 27 to 30 degrees. Not 26, not 31. And they're going to start, 100 to 200 foot per minute descent, and then gradually increase that to 200 to 300. It's very gradual. You should be about 500 feet at the 90-degree point. All right, so at the 90, 500 feet is what you should see on the rad out. Gradually increasing your rad out to VSI to 500 feet per minute, then to 600 feet per minute and around the 45. And there you should be at about 370 feet, which is where your rad out was, right? So you're crossing the wake of the ship with 45 degrees of turn with your rad out going off at that point. So if you hear it going off there, you know you're flying it right. That's a good audible checkpoint. And then around here, you're starting to really increase the visual scan outside, inside, outside, inside, outside, and finally you get to the start where you're purely visual at that point. But at least for the first 90 degrees, is totally an instrument turn. We'll come back to that in a minute. ICLS is a tool that can kind of help you see how you're doing. If you're at the 45 and you see the circle velocity vector sitting flat on the glide slope bar of the ICLS, hey, that's a good gouge that you've been flying a good parameters in your approach turn. It's just gouge. It's not perfect. Additionally, if you turn late off the 180 or if you turn early off the 180, then none of these numbers are going to work because the geometry is built on hitting a 15 to 18 second final. Not 3/4 of a mile. That's not right. It's 15 to 18 seconds. So 14 seconds you're wrong, 19 seconds you're wrong. This is the final that we're looking for. And for those that have not been aware of this 15 to 18 second straightaway is called the groove. So we want to have a 15 to 18 second groove length. If you bolter or if you get told to wave off. So first off, wave off is mandatory. So if I tell you to wave off, you have to. You are not allowed to take your own wave off. So leave that to me to own that, but do not take your own wave off. If I tell you to wave off, that's on your own. If you bolter or wave off, it's to climb to 600 feet, parallel the BRC, and then turn downwind with your interval. If their pattern is empty and there's no one else there, or your interval is way behind you here at the 90 and it's not a factor, wait till at least 1 mile before turning for the same reasons of giving yourself a nice straightaway on the downwind to get yourself squared away by the 180. Do not reconfigure in the case 1 or 2 bolter pattern. All right. For the interval, again, there were some light bulb moments yesterday that turned on with this. This is extremely important, and I think some people weren't aware of this, but this is absolutely key to making sure that this doesn't get ruined for everyone. If you are following someone else, so in the Navy, the person that you are following is called your interval, and the amount of distance you're supposed to be behind them is also called your interval, but you can tell which one we're using by context. So if you are, again, I should have fixed this first point. I wrote this incorrectly. If you are coming into the break and there's an airplane on the downwind, you shall not brake until that airplane on the downwind passes behind your left horizontal stabilator, past your 7 o'clock, and is totally out of sight. Then you can brake. If you are dirty, such as you've boltered or waved off or just launched straight into the pattern, then you can turn when the interval is at your 7 o'clock position at your left horizontal stabilator. All right, that is the interval. Do not turn sooner than that. We don't want to be too tight on the people in front of us. All right, but people were doing a pretty good job about that yesterday for the most part. An issue that came up yesterday that I didn't brief yesterday, but kind of something to talk about. Suppose that you bolter just as someone else is launching, and you guys are really right on top of each other, the rule is the first one to the bow wins. For those of you that don't speak nautical, the bow is the front of the ship. But the first one there wins. So you might be upwind, a quarter of a mile behind each other the whole way. But whoever was first is going to turn, and then the next person is going to turn with the 7 o'clock gouge. All right. Doesn't happen too often, but it happens sometimes. But it's something to think about. I put this in red and in caps lock to super emphasize because this is one of those things where these things. Oh God, what have I done? This is one of those things that gets screwed up in a lot of these events, and it really hurts people. So, suppose that the airplane that you're following does not turn at the white of the round down, but turns beyond it and makes a mistake and does that. The wrong answer is to compensate by extending as well and just following them. The right answer is to fly the normal pattern and turn at the correct point. Yes, that will create I won't say collision hazard, but you will be simultaneously approaching the groove on top of each other, kind of a hazard. That is paddle's job to handle that. So paddles will wave off the offending airplane. Paddles will say, at the 90, wave off starboard side. All right. And then you'll wave off, you fly up the right side of the ship and then continue upwind. So just have the faith that paddles will handle that, but do not compensate by also flying it wrong if the guy in front of you did it wrong. Even better, nobody fly it wrong. All right. Cool. I'm going to make that its own slide because that is just one of the biggest takeaways we see from these DCS EQ events. All right. Ball flying. All right. On the left side of the carrier, this is the ball. It's the IFLAWs. These green lights are called the datums. The ball here is called the source. We'll just call it the ball. If the ball is above the green lights, above the datums, you're high. If it's even, you're low. If it's below the green datums, you're low. If it's red, then you're really, really low. And if you can't see the ball at all, then you are beyond the limits of the entire IFLAWs, and you don't know if you're high or low. I mean, if you're egregiously, you'll know for sure, but you don't know for sure. If you don't see a ball, do not make a ball call. Say Clara. Clara is short for clarify, and I will tell you where you are, and I will talk you back down. Once you see the ball, just say ball. I'll give you a Roger ball. But if you're above the green, you're high. If you're even with it, you're good. If you're below it, you're low. The 2-minute spiel on how to fly the ball. First things first is get to a good start. If you show up 15 to 18 seconds on speed, on center line, on glide slope, then this becomes 100 times easier. And that's not just me being an old man, like just saying a bunch of wisdom. That is legitimately true. Anyone will tell you it's actually very, very, very hard relative to getting to a good start. So please get to a good start to make it easier for yourself. The ball is extremely sensitive, far more sensitive than ILS glide slope, far more sensitive than a Pappy or a Vazzy. So you can't just kind of cruise it in and ride it in because you don't really know what it's going to do. It is extremely sensitive. So to mitigate that, ball flyers do a proactive game plan where they push the ball up by adding power and then bring it back down. Push it up and then bring it back down. So now the ball is moving because it's going to move anyway, but now it's moving on our terms because we're controlling it. A rookie, as he does this, will probably push it way high and then bring it down, and way high and bring it down. Someone more experienced and has more finesse will move it just ever so slightly. And someone who's just really good at this, the ball will imperceptibly move higher. And the throttles are constantly moving, right? Stick and throttles constantly moving. You can never set it and forget it. You're constantly working the glide slope, constantly pushing the ball up and down and up and down. So do not set it and forget it. The rules to live by are on the right, and these are always followed, and these will keep you safe. So never lead or low or slow. So if you are low or slow, I'll go with a low. Push the ball up until you are above glide slope, and then take out your correction. All right, so you're not leading it. You're not anticipating the correction. You're getting all the way above glide slope, and then you're removing the correction. If you are slow, same thing. Accelerate and do not wait. Do not pull power back or adjust your attitude until you are fully on speed. If you are high, and you pull power back to center the ball, you can push the power back up in anticipation of the ball being centered. All right, so always lead it. So that's the opposite. Same thing with a fast. If you are low and slow at the same time, fix the low first and then the slow. If you're high and fast at the same time, fix the fast first and then the high. Never recenter a high ball in close. So yeah, at the start, if you're really high, you want to make an aggressive play for it. You can go for it. But if you are in close, such as what we see in this picture right here, and the ball is really high, you do not want to be chopping your power off and screaming towards the back of the ship. In that case, you accept your bolter. We say, take your bolter like a man. I don't know if they still say that in 2022, but they said it back in the day. Just accept it. Do not recenter a high ball in close and fly the ball all the way to touchdown. Because that ball is so sensitive, you can legitimately fly it all the way to touchdown. And the landing itself should be a surprise. About being on speed is very important. Couple of reasons. One, on speed reduces the likelihood of a hook skip bolter. It reduces the likelihood of an in-flight engagement where you just snag a wire while you're airborne. And also super important, if you're not on speed, the iFlaws is giving you incorrect information. Your glide slope information you're seeing from the ball is wrong if you're not on speed, because you have now changed the hook to eye value of your airplane. So please be on speed. Bonus question. Over here, I have 3 shapes above the ship. Does anyone know what these mean? Anyone want to take a guess?
It means suck less.
Okay, thank you for your service. If for someone who's in the Navy, you should know this more than anyone else, but it is the maritime symbol for a vessel restricted in its ability to maneuver. Thank you for your wearing your sea service ribbon there, Kamikaze. Thank you for your service. All right.
That's what I'm here for.
All right. And that is it. Questions on all this? I have another PowerPoint just of pictures. It will take 3 seconds, but does anyone have any questions so far on this stuff?
That's something
Can
else.
you just clarify something? Can you give an
Yes.
example for whenever, let's say, you bolter or you just take off and you make a call for your interval in the pattern? How does that sound? Because that was definitely something that I heard a lot yesterday, but I didn't really know what you were saying.
Okay. Oh, okay. So the air boss, depending on how much SA he has, and that's situational awareness for those of you on the metric system. All right. So depending on how much SA he has and how much time he has, he can tell you where your interval is as a courtesy. So, for example, suppose there's an suppose this is the ship right here. This is a runway. So just pretend this little part right here is the whole ship. And suppose there's an airplane on downwind over here, for instance. If you were to bolter or wave off inside 301, the air boss may say, not definitely, but as a courtesy, he may say, 301, your interval is at your left 10 o'clock on the downwind. And then you could just say 301. So now you know that's the person you're supposed to be following. All right. Suppose there was another airplane that just bolted before you and he hadn't turned downwind yet. I would say 301, your interval is 2 miles in front of you upwind. And that's the person you're supposed to be following. Suppose that there's someone that's in the crosswind over here, right? And you are coming into the break. I may say 401 at the initial, your interval is turning crosswind. So now you know who you're following when you're supposed to be braking. Does that answer your question, Shadow?
Uh,
I'm basically
well,
telling you who you're supposed to be following.
okay.
That's all that it is. And I'm telling you where he is. Your interval is at 9 o'clock. You just
All
say
right.
301. And now you look at your 9 o'clock. Oh, I see an airplane. That's who I'm following. That's what that is.
All right. Thanks.
Cool. Let me pull up. Let me turn off my streaming so I can hide the JDAM manual real quick and get this here.
You both
Uh,
say a guy at your like 3 o'clock. Do you wait for them to break and then do the whole 7 o'clock off your left thing?
we'll come back to that in a second because I'm in the zone right now. Real quick, sharing my screen again. I found this an old LSO school email presentation. It's just more visual aids to help people. So not important, not important, not important. All right, cool. So high holding, if you're at Angels 20 or higher, something like that, 10-mile circle. All right, 10-mile radius. And you're just keeping the ship at the center. All right, that's high holding. We didn't do that at all yesterday, but it could happen. Low holding, right? The lowest altitude is 2,000 feet, and then they're separated by 1,000. You can only descend in this sector over here, like we talked about, in the back half of the circle. That is the rule. All right, so stay inside 5 miles, and that's kind of a visual depiction. Yesterday, we did a good job. We collapsed the stack, so I'd say, 401 take Angels 2, 302 take Angels 3, and then someone else take Angels 4, and I would just gradually collapse it down, and then whoever's at 2,000, I'm going to tell you to Charlie, and then you can descend out of there and head to the initial. Which looks like this, basically, right? You're descending. I say Charlie. Cool. Now you descend aft of a beam only, right? That blue half of the circle. And then you head on down to hit the initial there. All right. Initial 3 miles, 800 feet, just like that. Brake to the downwind, right? Level brake. This guy, very bad. He's braking at the bow of the ship. Bad, bad, bad. Don't do that. All right. And then you can see each wingman's braking 17 seconds after that. Yeah, 4 DME limit. Sometimes we push that, but no comment on that. Again, super precise approach turn. All right, this is where the precision airmanship skills lie. Is that approach turn? All right. So at the wider the round down, very gentle, 100, 200 feet per minute. You want to be about 500 feet at the 90, 300, 400 feet per minute. Then at the 45, 370 feet, and then 400, 500 feet per minute, and then you're at the start, where you're not really numerically looking at your VSI anymore. Your velocity vector is kind of a visual VSI, but really you're just flying meatball lineup angle of attack. Yeah, cool. What is this? What are these slides here? Yeah, cool. Department, whatever. Spin. If you know what the spin pattern is and you think you need to use it, but I'm not going to teach it today. Department enter, whatever. All right, if for whatever reason I need you to do a case 1 departure, as in I don't want you to enter the pattern from the catapult, I want to send you away, do a case 1 departure. So take off, turn right, clean up the airplane, gear up, flaps auto for the Hornet, and then turn back to barrel, and then off of the clearing turn left back to parallel BRC. 500 feet, 300 knots. Then after 7 miles, you're cleared weird to do whatever you want. Taking into account, though, that you cannot change altitudes within the 10-mile bubble. So as an example, if I tell you on the catapult to launch, and then on the launch, take Angels 2, you will launch, you will turn right, you will clean up the airplane, you will climb to 500 feet and accelerate to 300 knots, you will turn left to parallel the BRC, you will hit 7 miles. I would just extend to 10 miles, climb to 2,000 feet, then level at 2,000 feet, turn left, and now re-enter the 10-mile bubble. All right, so that's how that should work for a case 1 departure. But the big takeaway is do a clearing turn, 500 feet, 300 knots. All right, that's the case 1 departure. True or false? Ray, is this true or false?
I think Ray's AFK right now.
Oh, he's gone. Happy, is this true or false?
True.
Actually, man, the Sith never deals in absolutes, so it is false. So, what if a pilot needs to depart the pattern to address gross weight? Whatever. Trick question. Not really important for today, but it was in this slide that I didn't make. Cool. That's it for the brief. Does anyone have any questions? And I want to take the time to make sure everything is clear.